So I want you to picture the supplement industry as like a massive multi-billion-dollar casino.
Oh, yeah, where the house almost always wins.
Exactly. I mean, most of what you buy in those brightly colored plastic tubs is, well, basically flavored water, right?
Yeah.
Or, proprietary blends of cheap stimulants and just a really heavy dose of placebo.
Yeah, it's mostly marketing hype.
Right. But imagine you're wandering the aisles of this massive store down in Miami. Shelves are literally packed to the ceiling. And behind the counter is Giannis Lopez, the owner.
Okay.
He watches people buy this stuff week after week, month after month. And Lopez noticed a really specific pattern.
Which is pretty rare in that industry, actually.
Right. For almost everything on those shelves, the feedback he'd get was super vague.
Mhm.
Customers would be like, yeah, I think I feel a difference, or maybe I have a little more energy.
Which is, basically impossible to separate from wishful thinking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But out of that entire massive store, there was exactly one product hiding in plain sight on the bottom shelf that consistently prompted people to return with hard, measurable results.
And we're not talking about just feeling good.
No, we are talking about customers walking in and saying, I just added 25 pounds to my bench press in 5 weeks. Like, what is this stuff?
It really is the ultimate outlier in the industry. I mean, it's the one compound where the numbers simply undeniably go up, and it happens to cost pennies a day.
Yeah, and that paradox is basically our mission for today's deep dive. We are cutting straight through the bro science, all the marketing hype, and the gym myths.
Which there are a lot of.
So many. We're looking at a fascinating article by Lopez called The Truth About Creatine, What 500-Plus Studies Actually Show from Pine's Nutrition.
Like a great piece.
Our goal today is to uncover what the most heavily researched supplement in the world actually does to your cellular biology.
Right, and to set the foundation here, the results people see with this aren't just a psychological test.
It's not a placebo.
Not at all. In 2017, the International Society of Sports Nutrition put out a really comprehensive position paper. I mean, they reviewed the entire massive body of global research spanning decades.
Wow. Decades of data.
Yeah, and their conclusion was definitive. They stated that this is the most effective nutritional supplement currently available for increasing high-intensity exercise capacity and lean body mass.
That is huge.
It is. That isn't just a marketing team talking, That is the global sports science consensus.
Which is an incredibly bold claim. And honestly, before we can just blindly accept these wild results, we have to understand the underlying mechanics.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you just hear, hey, add 25 pounds to your bench press, it sounds like snake oil.
Well, it sounds like magic.
Right. So we need to know how it actually works inside the human body so it doesn't sound like magic. Okay, let's unpack this.
The biology is actually surprisingly straightforward once you break it down. So first off, your body already manufactures creatine.
It makes it on its own.
Yeah. You produce about 1 gram of it every single day, primarily in your liver, your kidneys, and your pancreas.
Okay, got it.
And you also take in small amounts from your diet. Well, if you eat meat and fish. Once it's in your system, your bloodstream transports it, and about 95% of it gets stored directly inside your muscle tissue.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics inside the muscle, because that seems to be the key to everything.
It really is.
In the sources, they detail how its primary job is regenerating ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate.
Right.
Now, ATP is the literal currency of cellular energy. Like when your muscle contracts, whether you're sprinting, jumping, or lifting something heavy, your cells power that movement by snapping a phosphate molecule off the ATP.
Which releases a massive burst of energy.
Exactly. But when it loses that phosphate, it becomes ADP, adenosine diphosphate. It's essentially a dead battery at that point.
And that is exactly where creatine enters the equation. It's stored in the muscle as phosphocreatine. So when your cells are suddenly flooded with all these dead ADP batteries, the creatine steps in and donates its own phosphate molecule.
Oh, wow. So just hands it over.
Exactly. It rapidly transforms the dead ADP back into fully charged ATP, ready to be burned for energy all over again.
So if ATP is like the factory-installed battery power for your muscles, taking a creatine supplement is basically buying a premium extended life battery pack.
I love that analogy. Yes.
It just ensures you have enough extra phosphate to instantly recharge your cells for that, that critical final sprint, or those last 2 reps in the gym when your normal battery would have just completely died.
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanical simplicity of it.
Yeah.
By supplementing, you are basically just topping off your natural muscle stores beyond what the human diet can realistically provide.
Because we don't eat enough meat to max it out.
Exactly. Your body has a certain genetic capacity to hold this fuel, but your natural production and a standard diet, they only fill the tank maybe halfway or like 3/4 full.
Yeah.
Supplementing simply fills it to the brim. There is no mystery or magic involved here at all. It's just giving your body a larger reserve of its own natural fuel.
Placed exactly where it's needed most.
Right. At the exact millisecond, the primary tank runs empty.
Okay, so since the core mechanism is simply topping off cellular fuel, we have to look at who is currently running low on that fuel.
Yeah, and that takes us way beyond just the traditional gym bros and athletes.
Right. I mean, the core use case will probably always be strength athletes, right? Like
Yeah.
football players, soccer players, anyone with really explosive physical demands.
For sure. But the demographic that researchers are paying the most attention to right now is actually older adults.
Really, older adults. Because of sarcopenia, the age-related muscle loss.
Precisely. After you hit 50, muscle loss accelerates significantly, and the research shows that combining creatine with resistance training actively slows this physical decline.
That's incredible.
It supports strength retention in a way that directly translates to reducing fall risks. I mean, the societal implications here are massive.
Yeah, especially when you consider our aging population. Retaining muscle is just critical for independence.
And longevity, yeah.
Now, the source material also specifically calls out vegetarians and vegans as another major group that benefits. But I actually want to push back on that for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
If our bodies make this naturally in the liver and kidneys every day, like you said, isn't it kind of an exaggeration to claim that plant-based eaters have a, quote, deficit?
Well, that is a really common point of confusion. We have to separate baseline survival from optimal performance.
Okay, what do you mean?
A vegan's body is absolutely manufacturing enough creatine for basic, everyday physiological function. They're surviving just fine.
Right.
But dietary creatine comes exclusively from animal products, specifically skeletal muscle like beef and fish.
Oh, I see.
Because vegans aren't absorbing any extra from their diet, their baseline muscle creatine stores are measurably lower than someone who eats a lot of meat. So their tanks are sitting much closer to empty.
So it's not like a dangerous medical condition, it's just a suboptimal environment for physical performance.
Exactly. And because their starting baseline is lower, the clinical data shows that when plant-based individuals begin supplementing, the effects they experience are disproportionately strong.
Like they see a massive jump in their cellular saturation.
A huge jump. It's basically a no-brainer for them. And it highlights a really interesting irony in the supplement world.
What's that?
Well, the two demographics who stand to gain the most dramatic life-altering benefits from this,
Older adults and vegans.
yes, they are the exact groups who are entirely ignored by the marketing.
That is so true. The marketing is basically exclusively targeted at, like, 22-year-olds in stringer tank tops aggressively shaking blender bottles.
Exactly,
Yeah.
which leaves the people who actually need it most completely in the dark.
Wow. Okay, so if we're talking about groups that are completely ignored by the marketing, we have to pivot to the brain.
Yes, the cognitive frontier.
Because if creatine provides fuel for energy-hungry muscles, what happens when we apply that exact same ATP regenerating mechanism to the most energy-hungry organ in the human body?
It is a remarkable shift in focus for researchers right now.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The brain makes up only about 2% of your total body weight, right?
Yeah, it's tiny.
But it consumes a staggering 20% of your body's total energy supply.
It's like a supercomputer running massive background processes 24/7. Even when you are just sitting still, staring at a wall, your brain is burning through ATP simply to maintain the electrical charge across billions of neurons.
So if you're listening to this deep dive right now while driving to work on, like, maybe 5 hours of sleep, your brain is currently relying on ATP to keep you focused on the road.
And it's probably struggling.
Right. And the article dives into how early research is showing that creatine supplementation actively improves cognitive tasks, specifically when you're under conditions of high mental fatigue or sleep deprivation.
Researchers are actively asking, what does ATP regeneration mean for mental performance? What does it mean for neurological conditions or just aging?
For me, That completely shifts creatine from a sports category into a pure survival category for the modern listener.
I completely agree.
I mean, we're talking about people dealing with endless virtual meetings, heavy screen time, and a chronic lack of sleep.
Right. Under severe sleep deprivation, the brain struggles to keep up with its own energy demands. The clearance of metabolic waste slows down, and your cognitive function just plummets.
So supplying the brain with an extra reserve of phosphocreatine basically gives it a lifeline.
Exactly. When you view your brain not just as a thinking machine, but as a physical metabolic muscle that requires high-intensity fuel, topping off that fuel tank suddenly makes profound sense.
Yeah, if you are pulling an all-nighter for a presentation, your brain is doing the metabolic equivalent of a heavy deadlift. It needs raw fuel. But human nature being what it is, when we hear about massive systemic benefits across both the brain and the body, we automatically assume there must be a catch.
Right, the downside.
We need to explore where the anxiety surrounding creatine comes from and whether it's actually justified, because people have a lot of fear about this compound.
The apprehension is largely based on rumors that have floated around locker rooms and internet forums since, well, the 1990s.
Oh, yeah. The steroid myth.
The biggest one, people see that it helps build muscle, and they immediately assume it must be an anabolic steroid.
Which Lopez shuts down forcefully in the article. It's not a hormone.
No.
It doesn't interact with the body's androgen receptors at all. Calling it a steroid is it's like calling vitamin C a steroid. It just makes absolute zero biological sense.
It is chemically impossible.
Right.
And then there is the hair loss myth.
Oh, man, the hair loss thing. I hear this everywhere.
Which is a fascinating case study in how bad scientific information spreads. The entire fear that creatine causes hair loss originates from a single, unreplicated study.
Wait, really? Just one study?
Just one. Conducted back in 2009 on college-aged rugby players in South Africa. That specific study showed an increase in DHT.
Which is dihydrotestosterone, right? The testosterone byproduct that binds to hair follicles and makes them shrink.
Yes, DHT is the primary culprit in male pattern baldness. And the 2009 study suggested creatine spiked DHT levels.
Okay, so why shouldn't we be worried?
Because in the 15 years since that paper was published, no other laboratory has been able to replicate that finding.
Wow, not one.
Not one. And more importantly, no study has ever shown a direct clinical link between creatine use and actual hair loss.
That's crazy. But because hair loss is such a massive, emotional touch point for men, that single outlier study just went viral?
Exactly. And the myth became cemented as fact in the public consciousness.
Okay, what about the bloating? Another massive fear. People say it makes you look soft, heavy, and causes you to retain water. I always kind of assumed this was a legitimate downside.
Well, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of cellular hydration.
Okay, explain that.
Creatine does pull water into the body, yes, but it relies on osmosis to pull water inside the muscle cells themselves.
Intramuscular hydration.
Right. This actually makes the muscle look fuller and denser, and it goes further than aesthetics that increased water pressure inside the cell is actually a mechanical trigger that signals the muscle to grow.
Wait, so the water is what signals protein synthesis?
Yes, it's a feature, not a bug.
So it doesn't cause that soft, puffy water retention under the skin?
No, that would be subcutaneous water retention. True. Uncomfortable bloating usually only happens if someone is doing an unnecessary loading phase with massive doses.
Oh, like taking way too much at once.
Exactly, unabsorbable doses. Or if they bought a really cheap product packed with low-quality fillers that irritate the gut.
Okay, let's tackle the biggest medical fear, though. Because I want to push back on the safety profile here regarding the kidney myths.
Sure.
Hold on. Lopez explicitly admits in the source material that taking creatine raises your blood creatinine levels.
He does, yes.
And creatinine is the exact metabolic marker that doctors look at on a blood panel to screen for kidney disease. So if the source admits it raises the marker for kidney disease, doesn't that mean doctors are entirely justified in telling their patients to stop taking it?
It is a completely fair question, and it's the precise reason so many well-meaning doctors get alarmed when they look at a patient's lab results.
Right.
But we have to untangle the mechanism of what creatinine actually is, because creatinine is just a metabolic byproduct.
Okay.
Since creatine spontaneously degrades in your muscles at a constant rate, creatinine is essentially the exhaust fumes from your muscles burning that fuel.
The exhaust fumes.
Oh.
Understood.
Doctors measure it because, in a normal body, If creatinine levels suddenly spike, it usually means the kidney's filtration system is failing to clear the normal daily amount of exhaust out of the blood.
Because the filter is broken.
Right. However, when you supplement, you are artificially putting far more creatine into the system. Therefore, you naturally produce far more exhaust.
Ah. So your blood creatinine levels rise simply because there is a larger volume of it being processed, not because your kidney filter is broken.
Exactly. To get a real picture, doctors need to look at GFR, the glomerular filtration rate.
To make sure I have this right, think of the glomeruli as the microscopic sieves in your kidneys.
Yeah.
GFR measures exactly how much blood passes through those sieves every minute, right?
That is the crucial distinction. When researchers look at actual direct markers of kidney function, like GFR, those remain perfectly normal and healthy even during long-term supplementation.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
While the creatinine levels fluctuate based on how much muscle fuel you have, your GFR tells us if the sieve itself is actually compromised.
So the exhaust in the room doubled because we brought a second generator in, not because the ventilation system broke.
That is a perfect analogy, yes. The filtration system is working flawlessly. There is simply more material to filter.
Okay, but there has to be a medical caveat here, right?
Yeah. Yes. The absolute caveat is that if you have a pre-existing kidney condition, if your sieves are already damaged, you must consult a specialist before taking it.
Of course.
But for healthy individuals, the clinical consensus firmly concludes it does not damage renal function.
Okay, so since we've established that it's safe and the biological mechanisms work for both the brain and the body, we need to transition into the practical guide.
How to?
Right, because the supplement industry is a complete minefield of overhyped cash grabs, and we need to know exactly how to execute this daily habit without wasting our money. And the guidelines seem surprisingly simple.
The beauty of this protocol really is in its simplicity. The clinically effective dosage is just 3 to 5 grams daily.
So what does this all mean for the whole loading phase thing? Why that specific 3 to 5 gram number? You always hear guys at the gym insisting you have to do a loading phase where you take like 20 grams a day for the first week to shock the system.
The math comes back to that biological turnover rate we mentioned earlier. Your body naturally breaks down and excretes about 1 to 2% of its creatine stores every single day.
Okay.
For the average human, that equates to roughly 2 to 3 grams of metabolic decay. Taking a 3 to 5 gram dose is the exact mathematical amount needed to replace that daily decay and keep the cellular tank topped off.
That makes perfect sense. So what about the 20 grams?
Well, as for the loading phase, taking 20 grams a day for a week will help you reach cellular saturation faster, maybe in a few days rather than a few weeks, but it is entirely unnecessary for long-term results.
And isn't taking 20 grams what causes the bloating anyway?
Exactly. Massive doses are what typically cause the stomach cramping and bloating people complain about.
Okay, and since we know this works by slowly saturating the muscle tissue like a sponge over time, that completely debunks the obsession with timing, right?
It does. Pre-workout, post-workout, morning, night, it is biologically irrelevant. Because it operates on saturation, not on immediate nervous system stimulation like caffeine, your muscles don't use the supplement you just swallowed for today's workout, they store it for tomorrow's.
So the only variable that matters is consistency.
Just take it at whatever time of day ensures you won't forget it.
Now, I always assumed you'd had to cycle off it, like you do with caffeine, to stop your body from building a tolerance and downregulating its own natural production.
Yeah, that's another persistent myth. Your body does not build up a tolerance to this compound.
It doesn't.
No. And while your natural endogenous production might temporarily pause while you are supplementing, it resumes immediately once you start. There are long-term studies following daily users for up to 5 years with 0 adverse effects.
So there is no physiological benefit to cycling off of it.
None at all.
Which brings us to the actual shopping experience. If the basic monohydrate mechanism is so perfect, why are there a dozen other expensive versions on the shelf? Like you see creatine HCl, creatine ethyl ester, buffered creatine, and they cost 3 to 4 times as much.
That is the supplement industry's marketing machine at work. Plain creatine monohydrate is incredibly cheap to produce, and because it's been around for so long, it is essentially unpatentable.
So companies cannot create high profit margins on a generic powder.
Exactly. So to generate revenue, they will chemically alter it slightly, invent a new form, patent that specific molecular structure, and then market it as highly superior so they can dramatically mark up the retail price.
So essentially, they are solving a problem that doesn't exist just to create a patentable product.
That is exactly what they are doing. The vast majority of those 500-plus scientific studies we discussed were conducted using plain, simple creatine monohydrate.
So none of the fancy ones are better.
In properly controlled clinical trials, none of those expensive, fancy forms have ever been proven to be superior to monohydrate in terms of muscle saturation. Save your money.
Good to know. Is there anything specific we should look for on the label?
The one specific thing you should look for on the ingredient label is the word Creapure, spelled C-R-E-A-P-U-R-E. Yes. It is a German manufacturing certification mark that guarantees the product is pharmaceutical grade, highly pure, completely flavorless, and free of heavy metals or contaminants.
Wow. All right, to recap our journey today,
Yeah.
we are looking at a naturally occurring cellular fuel source.
Right.
It has 30 years of bulletproof clinical data backing its ability to enhance physical strength, protect aging muscles from decline, and potentially ward off mental fatigue and sleep deprivation by feeding a starving brain.
It's an incredible list of benefits.
And it accomplishes all of this with an incredibly safe biological profile that has been validated by every major sports science body on the planet. I mean, it makes total sense why it was the only thing flying off the shelves in Miami that actually delivered on its promises.
It is a remarkable molecule, and this actually raises an important question, something for you to ponder as we wrap up today's deep dive.
Oh, lay it on me.
Well, if the current cognitive research continues to hold true, if we are actively proving that this compound fights off sleep deprivation and mental exhaustion at a fundamental cellular level, could creatine eventually replace caffeine as society's go-to productivity tool?
Oh, wow.
Think about the underlying mechanics. Stimulants like caffeine, they don't actually give you any real energy. They just chemically block your brain's adenosine receptors so you can't feel the fatigue that is accumulating.
So you are essentially borrowing energy from tomorrow.
Exactly, which is why you inevitably crash. Creatine, on the other hand, is supplying actual foundational cellular fuel to the brain. It makes you wonder if, 10 years from now, the corporate break rooms of the future might just ditch the coffee pot entirely and replace it with a tub of simple creatine monohydrate.
Now that is a wild paradigm shift, trading the nervous system jitters for actual biological fuel. But, it makes perfect sense when you understand the mechanics. Well, as always, we encourage you to keep questioning the marketing hype, keep seeking out the actual underlying science, and maybe take a closer look at the kind of fuel you're putting into your own engine. Until next time, we'll see you in the next deep dive.